So we've got some things going on. What we would like to do is they're going to arrest.
Right now?
After
No.
2 witnesses, Your
After
Honor.
2 witnesses. Substantial witnesses, but they can arrest after 2 witnesses. Motion for judgment of acquittal, which is not pro forma. We would like to call 2 witnesses today. We have Piazza's here, who's the sound guy, and we have LaForte, who's here. We would like to, we have medical examiner in the morning, and Knox, if we call him, would be in the morning. We would finish by lunch tomorrow. We could also do jury instructions either today, not that I want you to prejudge the judgment of acquittal, but we could do jury instructions today and utilize the time. But we have some issues. There's one more issue that counsel has raised, and I don't want to speak for them, but there is an animation that has been created of the happenings that night. The witness who would introduce that animation is here now, going to testify next. But I think what the state is suggesting is that they don't want to introduce it, but they want to make sure that I'm not going to have some sort of foundational objection to them using it as a demonstrative aid in closing. And I don't have an objection to them using it as a demonstrative aid in closing.
I know there's got to be something you're about to tell me is going to get me nervous.
There's nothing that's going to get you nervous, I'm not using the word as a term of art, like, I won't have an objection to them using it in closing. I'm not going to come up with some new objection for closing. But, did I say that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. I believe we just wanted it on the record that we're going to forego, because she's from Washington, D.C., we're going to forego laying all the foundation that we may necessarily use to then use it for a demonstrative in closing. It's on the record. We'll be able to use it in closing. We're not expecting it to introduce it as a piece of evidence during our case in chief, sir.
That doesn't mean that I won't be commenting on it in my closing.
Of course.
However I choose to do that, and of course it could be,
Because you've seen it, I presume, and you know.
They could introduce it in their rebuttal closing.
I got it. So
but-
it doesn't sound like there's a dispute here.
It doesn't, no, I think that's what we took the time to agree on. We agreed on that stuff. So, it looks like we have 2 witnesses this afternoon. Then,
In addition to our 2 witnesses, yes, sir.
Right. So we have 4 witnesses this afternoon.
yes.
Judgment of acquittals, and then if Your Honor would allow a final discussion of jury instructions.
Okay? All sounds like a good plan.
And we may not, who knows if we'll get 4 witnesses on, but it's still going to end in a reasonable time.
Okay. And so I think I heard you say that you believe that you're going to be able to rest by Tuesday lunch.
Tuesday lunch, I would think.
Obviously dependent upon whether or not their client testifies, Your Honor, potentially.
Okay?
And we'll make that decision, I would assume, tonight.
potentially any rebuttal? Potentially.
If he testifies,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right. So our time frame is potentially getting closings Tuesday afternoon at 1 or first thing Wednesday morning.
Well, I think my recollection is you told us it would be Wednesday morning for Wednesday for closing.
Yeah, but I was told it would take through Tuesday. Your staff scrunched up their face. I do have a good memory. See, they're all laughing now because they scrunched up their faces behind you when we suggested it be done Tuesday. So I mean, if we're done Tuesday at lunchtime, I'm going to send them home again.
I think, I can't speak for whoever's going to give the state's closing, but there's an enormous amount to get organized for closing, and this trial is coming in plenty early, is what I think, and I need some time.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Let's see how it's going.
Okay.
Let's see how it's going. You asked me at the beginning of the trial, Judge, during jury selection, you're not going to try to rush us, jam us up, and I'm hoping both sides feel like I've just said, don't worry. I'm not, and I know, what is he going to say? No, Judge, you were a jerk.
We only say that when we get back.
In private, I think both sides feel like the judge has just said.
Been very accommodating, Your Honor.
Yes.
So here's my only concern. These people, then another day and, some things behind the scenes. So,
Expectations were Friday, resting, closings. Once again, we are ahead of expectations. Start off a nice brand-new day with morning closings and a full rest of the day of deliberation. I can't say I disagree with that proposition.
see, the
by
difference
defense.
is, so we'll talk, let's.
I have
Yes,
that
sir.
typed up.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about this out loud, because sometimes as we talk, things crystallize a little bit. So that's one of the reasons, if we were done with the presentation of evidence on Tuesday before lunch, I would do closings on Tuesday. Don't let them deliberate starting Wednesday morning, and they'd have 8 hours of full deliberation.
I definitely just get concerned about everything being closed, especially, I don't know what the court's going to specifically do as far as having the jury sequestered. But if that is an intention, then to not do it right after closings, I know we would request that if that is in the works or thought of or potential, realistic potential, I would, we would push to have that done immediately, so that way there's no, because if the issue's there for it, the issue's there for it. And just talking it out, that's one of the reasons, to me, if we went and had closings in the morning, then there's no issue with having a lot of time for fruitful conversation, deliberation during an afternoon.
I agree.
And maybe not even have a need for that, but, so.
I think I'm hearing both sides are asking me to wait till Wednesday morning.
That would be correct, yes, sir.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. So I'm leaning to giving you what you want, since I got both sides really being pretty firm. And keeping in mind, there is a lot to talk about and a lot to do. And I haven't forgotten what it's like to stand at those podiums and do that work. It's hard. And 2-hour closings, which I think both sides will use, rightfully so. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to test the waters with the jury. I'm going to talk to them right now. Tell them where we are, what we're thinking, and tell them what our plan is, and I'm just going to get a feel what they think.
And it's possible we won't finish by lunch tomorrow.
Okay?
I mean, it depends.
So, so let me talk to them, and now I think it's time for me to unfurl for the rest of them that 4 of them are alternate jurors. So, and I don't tell them who they are. All right, so I'm open to your suggestions. You have your witness
Yes, sir.
outside?
Thank you. Yes.
Who is it going to be, just so a deputy can run and get somebody?
Suzanne Brown.
Suzanne Brown, but not Dunk. Okay. Is anybody over there, Amy Morris? Everybody have a seat. All right, jurors. Lunch was all right? Nobody had the lettuce wrap, right? Nobody. We need some energy. All right. Terrific. So, let me talk to you about the lay of the land. Couple things. So, you remember early on when I was storming around the courtroom talking to you guys in groups of 100, that I said part of the process, from my view, when I have jurors, is I try to educate you. I get loads of letters of people saying, I didn't know that's how it worked, and thank you for telling us. And so I try to do that, and I try to keep you informed to the best of my ability. There's certain things I kind of hold back. So here's one of the things I've held back from you. I don't know if you guys know it or not, but in this case, there are 4 extra jurors right now. There are 4 alternate jurors. I don't tell you who you are. There are some studies that show if you know you're the alternate, you don't pay as close attention. We don't tell you who you are. I want you to know, each and every one of you, that a long time ago when I was a brand new judge, I had an alternate juror got so angry with me, so angry, so upset that they didn't get a chance to deliberate. But I need alternate jurors. We lose jurors on my last case I had. I lost one of the jurors for a variety of reasons. We had a juror in this case, their brother-in-law died right in the middle of picking the jury. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know when you're going to slide into that spot as one of the actual jurors in the case. But I tell the jury nowadays that there are alternates to kind of lessen the blow. Maybe, I've had cases where I tell them they're the alternate, they go, woohoo! They want to get out of here and they want to be gone. They don't want to make a difficult decision. But I've also had it where people are very disappointed. So I tell you that to kind of lessen the blow, and I keep you to the very, very bitter end, because the second reason I tell everybody watch their step is one time we let the alternates go home early, and one of the jurors fell out of the jury box and got hurt very badly. Then we don't have enough jurors to deliberate the case. So I keep the alternate to the very bitter end, and I will come down and talk to all the alternates in the case personally when we get to that moment. So there it is. I held that back from you, and now you know. The other thing is scheduling. So we expect the state to rest in the not too distant future. So the defense will then go. We already took one of their witnesses, and we're thinking that the presentation of evidence will be sometime tomorrow afternoon. Like I've told you, it's a very fluid thing. We don't know. But if we are done early, I just want to make sure, I'm trying to get a temperature from y'all and look you in the eye. We thought you'd be here till March 8th, right? We thought you'd be here till March 8th. We're way ahead of schedule. So I just want you to know there's a possibility that tomorrow we may break early. You're going to go home, and when you come back Wednesday morning, we're going to go right into closing arguments. And by Wednesday afternoon, my 6 jurors will be back there deliberating the case. And I just want to make sure everybody's okay, everybody's in fine. I want you to know all of us talked outside your presence just a little while ago about you have lives. You have jobs, you have kids, dogs, whatever it might, we know. So we keep pressing, but at the same time treating the case with respect to the lawyers, to both sides. So I just want to make sure everybody's okay, and that's our plan, that by Wednesday you'll be deliberating the case. And you have a lot to consider here. So I got a feeling it's going to, I've seen verdicts. I've had knock on the door, we've had a verdict before I make it back to my office. I've also seen it take 2 days. So I don't know what to expect. But you have a lot of evidence to review. So everybody's on board, everybody's okay, no issues, nothing I need to know about. Thank you. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Suzanne Brown.
Suzanne Brown, please. Miss Brown, good afternoon. Come on up. Meet Deputy Dunkley right out there. Once you get to Deputy Dunkley, if you'd raise your right hand and face Mr. Clerk for me.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, now you're going to have a seat right up there. Please, please, please watch your step. That chair swivels and it rolls. Get it where you're comfortable. But more importantly to me is get that microphone very close to your mouth, speak directly into it. And once you've done all that, if you would tell me your full name and spell it for us.
My name is Suzanne Brown, which is Suzanne, Brown, Brown.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Hi, Ms. Brown. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us where you're currently employed?
I am employed at the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia.
And how long have you worked for the FBI?
I've worked for the FBI almost 15 years and in the laboratory around 11.
And you said you work for the laboratory, but what is your current title?
My current title is Supervisory Visual Information Specialist.
And in that role, can you describe for us what it is you do, what the nature of your work is?
In my current role, I am a supervisor over several different programs. One of the programs is forensic art in nature. And then another program that I oversee is creating demonstrative exhibits for court, creating animations, and just multimedia type of exhibits.
Now, were you employed with the FBI back in October of 2015?
I was.
Were you in the same role that you are now?
No, actually, I have been promoted within the last 2 years, so I was previously a visual information specialist.
So now you're supervising the people who were in the position that you were in back in 2015.
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background?
Sure. I graduated in 2000 with a degree in studio art from what's now the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And right after graduation, I went into the workforce.
And do you have any training or other job experience that's relevant to the work that you're doing today?
I would say most of the experience I received much of it in college, but a lot of it I had received on the job over the course of many, many years.
Were you requested to perform any task in relation to FBI case number 282A MM6740884?
I was.
And is that the FBI case number related to the officer-involved shooting death of Cory Jones?
It is.
And what tasks were you asked to complete in relation to that case?
I was asked to produce an investigative aid, which is quite routine in our office.
And let me stop you there. Did that investigative aid involve audio files?
It did, yes.
And how many audio files were you asked to work with?
I was given 3 different audio files.
Do you know what the content of those files were? Do you remember?
I do.
Okay, can you tell us what the 3 files were?
Sure. The first file was an OnStar radio call, an OnStar vehicle disabled call that was made by Cory Jones. The second audio call was a 911 phone call from Officer Raja. And then the third audio file was a radio call, a dispatch radio call with Officer Raja and 911 dispatch.
And what was the purpose of you, or strike that, what were you asked to do with those 3 audio files?
I was asked to listen to the audio files and then see if I could sequence the audio files, find their similarities, and synchronize them in the end into one audio file.
Now, is this something, a task that you've done before in other cases?
Yes, we routinely work with audio files.
Okay, and when you say synchronize them to find if there's overlay, can you explain to us what that really means?
Sure. So I was given the 3 different audio files, and each of them has a different time code, if you will. They were recorded at various points in time. And so what was asked of me is to find any commonality that could, or overlap between 2 or 3 of the audio files. So what I'm looking for when I'm working with that is maybe commonly spoken words, certain sounds in the background that might have been caught, anything that could allow me to then find where those 2 audio files meet up, and then I could safely say that they are synchronized.
And so, and this could be a horrible example, but is it sort of like putting a puzzle together? I mean, you look for pieces that have, some of the same colors or same images in them to link them together?
Yeah, I'm looking for a clue, if you will. And in this case, it's an audio clue, not visual. So that's probably an okay metaphor. But basically what I'm looking for is common sounds or spoken words.
And in the 3 audio files that you received, did you find any common areas of overlap?
I did. So with regards to the OnStar call from Mr. Jones, there were 3 places in that audio file that overlapped with the 911 dispatch cell phone call from Officer Raja. And then I'm continuing to listen for more overlap, and then there was another point where the Officer Raja's 911 phone call, so the second audio file, overlapped with the 911 dispatch phone call. So that's how I was able to synchronize all 3 audio files.
And so that it's clear, when you say overlap, are you saying that you can actually be listening to, let's say, the 911 call and hear parts of the roadside assistance within that call?
Yeah, in essence, the roadside assistance was picking up audio of spoken words by Officer Raja when he was talking on his cell phone. So the idea is that if you are in the vicinity of a microphone, sounds can be picked up in the background.
Okay. And so when you say overlap, you hear a common word or a few sounds in one, and you hear that on a second one, so you know that they are happening at the same time.
Exactly, and it's not just like the word the, and I hear the twice. I'm finding like a phrase or several words strung together to make it more exact, make it more certain that these audio files do in fact synchronize together.
And when you connect them all, what are you able to learn about the incident or about what's happening in those particular calls?
Well, I'm putting it together as an investigative aid. So what I would be doing is putting it together and providing it to, in this case, it was an FBI case agent who could then, they could listen, analyze, and figure out the timing. But the main purpose, I believe, when it was given to me, was to synchronize the audio so that they could analyze the timing in which events occurred, and that could be picked up on the audio.
And what type of software would you have used to do this?
Sure. We, at the FBI, we use commercial software. There's nothing proprietary about it. It's the Adobe Creative Suite, and it's commercially available, and anybody can download it, pay for it. But in particular, what I used in that suite was called Audition, and it's Adobe's sound editing software. So I began with that, with using that software to listen to the files independently and then to bring them together.
Now let's talk about the files independent of each other. So when you put it in the software and you said editing, are you deleting or changing the speed or the timing in any of those files?
No, I'm not doing any of that. So in essence, all 3 files, none of them with the timing was changed. When I say editing in this scenario, it was pretty much just raising the volume of maybe softly spoken words or words that were spoken in the background that couldn't really be picked up. Or there, in this particular audio, the first one, there was a door chime that just kept ringing the whole time that Mr. Jones's door was open. So in that case, the door chime is a little distracting. So I might be lowering the door chime so you could hear what the spoken words were.
Okay. And the software allows you to amplify certain parts and lower the volumes on other parts of the sounds that you're hearing?
It does.
But there was nothing that you did to change the speed or change the time or delete any of the content of the files. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Other than that, did you make any other enhancements to the audio files?
No.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please? I'm showing the witness what is marked State's Exhibit Number 85 for identification purposes. Do you recognize this CD?
I do.
Have you listened to it prior to coming in today to testify?
I did.
What's contained on this file, this disc?
On that disk is one file that has one audio file containing the overlapped audio files that were provided to me.
And this is the final product of what you produced through the Adobe Audition software?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, State, I would move in to evidence State's Exhibit Number 85.
Any objection?
No objection, but a point of clarification at the bench.
Okay.
Thank you for calling agency roadside assistance. This is Maddie. May I have your mobile number that assist you?
561-573-2815.
Okay, give me one moment to pull up the account. And what's the name on it?
Cory Jones. Housing.
Yeah, the Delray Beach House.
Yes.
Alrighty. And what can I do for you tonight?
I need to get a tow. I'm not broke down.
And is this mobile number with the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. What's wrong with the vehicle?
It won't start.
Okay. And is it a four-wheel drive?
I think she will. Okay.
What's the address of the vehicle location?
I'm off the PGA, downtown Texas. 195.
On 95?
I-95 exit, PGA, southbound.
Okay, is there any, hold on, right, down. Is there any buildings, landmarks, anything like that, that I could use to pinpoint your address? Oh my gosh. There's Gunshot.
Fucking gun right now!
This is Gunshot 1. I got one down. I just shot one person. I'm at that offense right behind Double Black Hill. You're behind the Double Street? I'm on the offense, 35 southbound offense, off the Double Street. I'm not coming to anything right now. And, give me the minutes. I got one down. I got one man down. I got fire on the
Roger, you all right?
Yeah, man, I'm good. Drop it out.
On the off-ramp, buddy.
On the offense. Give me some units. I'm lost in contact with my number.
All right, you got it, buddy. You want to ready to go? audio, right?
My radio's in the van right now, I don't have it with me. I'm on that's on the phone.
All right, stay on the phone, buddy. What's the guy look like?
Black, they're wearing all black dress, had a silver handgun in his right hand. I came out, I saw him come out with a handgun, I gave him command, I identified myself, and he turned, pointed the gun at me, started running, I shot him. I've lost contact 65 to 28 on the SUV.
Go ahead.
There's gonna be a Florida 28 or 286 Papa Romeo Hotel, 286 2R8.
Don't know yet. Spike, what the hell now? All right, it's a 08 Hyundai Pop 286 Papa Romeo Hotel.
Yes,
All right,
286 Papa Romeo.
it's coming back on a four-door Hyundai gray.
Yeah, SUV.
Yeah, it's at a Lake Worth. It's not stolen or anything.
All right, man.
All right, stay on the phone. Where's the van at? Where's your van at? In the Autopsy lot?
No, right on the office, you'll see my van right here. I'm walking back to my van, I'm back to my van in the car.
All right.
It's gonna be 4 trends.
All right, you got your radio now?
No, hold on.
All right, I got units coming.
All right, thank you.
All right, stay on the phone, everybody. All right.
Car's off one, I'm weather as you know.
26, drive down, hit 4 times, 51, 51 stage. 350.
Where in the parking lot? I'm not in the parking lot, I'm right on the off-ramp. He ran across into the grass field, guys, right here. He ran in that direction, ran in that direction. I lost visual of him. 348, I'm on 95, 55, but they went out that south ramp.
All right, Steve, come around in the parking lot to the,
Okay, Ms. Brown. Now, that is the synchronized audio consisting of the roadside assistance call, the 911 call placed by the defendant, and then the radio traffic. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you have an opportunity to go back and see, or maybe count, or maybe there's some way that the software counts the amount of time that would have passed between certain spots in certain calls?
Yes, in some places in the audio.
Okay, and so I want to ask you a question, and let me know if you cannot answer this. But are you able to tell us how many seconds elapsed between the final shot that we hear and the 911 call?
Yes.
How many seconds is that?
I counted 33 seconds.
Now, do you recall if the first part of do you recall what was heard when the 911 call first merged with the roadside assistance call?
The exact wording,
If
where the
you
overlap
recall.
is?
Yes.
When he's reading off the license plate,
Okay.
that's one significant area.
And do you know at what words are being spoken as the 911 call is now connected into the roadside assistance call?
Okay, so with the 911 phone call and the radio dispatch call,
No, the roadside assistance call being first,
the first one,
correct?
and then the second one.
Correct.
So that was the one with the license plate. There were three points in the audio file where and I can't remember verbatim what they were, but there were 3 different points in the audio file where words were spoken, there was significant overlap with the words spoken. And one happened to be where the license plate was being read.
Okay, one moment, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Brown. No further questions, Judge.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon. Good, thank you.
We've met, haven't we?
We have.
I just want to clarify a couple of points, and then I'll leave you alone. There were 3 independent recordings that you merged for this presentation, correct?
Correct.
There was an independent recording of the AT&T roadside assistance call, correct?
Correct.
There was an independent recording of the 911 call,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Yes. And then there's the radio traffic call.
Correct.
Now, you gave a time estimate as to how many seconds passed before the 911 call went out or was connected?
The phone call?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Was that to the point where it says 911, what's your emergency, or was that to the point where it begins to record before then, even though the operator has not yet come on?
Yes, it goes to when I first hear any spoken words, which I believe were the officer's words, not the 911.
So in other words, you're counting the time where Raja says, drop that gun right now, or words to that effect, right?
Yes.
So clearly he had dialed 911 before they answered it because it's recording those sounds.
I would assume so.
So which time are you referring to when you say 30, whatever, 32
It
seconds?
was 33.
33 seconds. Which time are you referring to? Till what happened?
So from the last shot fired,
Yes?
and then I start counting to when the words were first spoken by Officer Raja. I can't remember offhand, drop that,
So in
right
other
there.
words, you're not recording until, you're not counting until the operator picks up the phone. You're counting to the first words you hear.
Correct, because the audio file itself that was given to me did not have much lead time at the beginning.
But certainly 911 was dialed before they connected.
I would assume so.
So you don't know how many seconds before it was connected was it called, basically?
No, I don't know that.
Now, you're with the FBI lab, or one of the labs in Quantico, not with the Sheriff's Department, right?
That's right.
And you provide your services free in those cases where you're helping out local law enforcement?
That's correct.
So all of the FBI agents and ERT teams and everything they do is at no cost to the local authorities, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Are you able to detect certain sounds that are on one tape and not the other, even after they've been synced?
Do you mean, am I able to identify a sound?
For example, you hear a chime from the car door on the AT&T, right?
Correct, yes.
And that signifies, I think, common knowledge that the door has been opened, correct?
Correct.
That chime gets quieter as you move away from the car through one of the other tapes, correct? Through the 911 call.
Yes, however, I don't think the 911 picked up the door chime at all.
That's the point I'm getting to. In other
Okay.
words, distance controls what is heard on any one of these calls.
Yes, absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, if you go back to the AT&T call, the roadside assistance call, there are things said that are not picked up by that call.
If words are spoken and depending on where they are in proximity, that would probably be the case.
Okay. And did you analyze this for the purposes of determining what sounds, what voices were not picked up by the AT&T call but might have been picked up in some other way?
No, I'm not focused on what wasn't picked up.
Okay. So the only purpose and I'm not minimizing it, but the only purpose of what you've done with this exercise is that you've synced the 3 calls exactly, so they're running it at the same time.
Yes, as an investigative aid to the case agent.
Okay. And there were certain words spoken that were common, so you know that it was the same time, like the license plate description.
Yes.
Correct, okay. And nothing was done, am I correct, to either raise the volume of or lower the volume of one call versus another in this project that you did, right?
No, I raised and lowered the audio.
Okay. So, in other words, for purposes of, well, let's talk about what the purposes were. You weren't trying to eliminate voices, were you?
No, no.
You were trying to maximize the 3 of them so that you could pick up what all 3 said?
As needed, and for instance, the door chime, which was very distracting and very loud, that was lowered. So there were sounds and noises and that were adjusted so that everything could be heard, if you will.
Okay, so let's talk about what else was lowered. It was lowered, the door chime was lowered. And does that mean that the entire segment of the tape where the door chime was heard was lowered?
No, so in the software, I'm able to isolate a particular noise in decibel. So I sampled the audio, and particularly the door chime, isolated it, and was able to lower that independently of the other noises, if you will.
So what else did you lower or raise?
I don't recall lowering anything else, although whenever there were spoken words or something that was spoken, I tried to raise it so I could hear as many of the words spoken as possible. So if something was kind of muffled or quiet, I would and could raise the audio level of the spoken words.
So we can't use your demonstrative aid here, your exhibit, to determine what you could hear from a certain location and what you couldn't hear because you've adjusted the volumes.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that wasn't the initial purpose. I think it was more of a timing thing that they were more in question of. As a matter of fact, when I've got the audio files, they had already been transcribed. I don't do transcription. So that's something that in my packet of information that might be provided to me.
So the answer to my question is that you lowered the segments of the volume or raised segments of the volume of the calls so that you could hear other things that were said.
Potentially, yes.
Well, that's why you did it. You didn't do it for any other reason, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
not potentially, that's,
Well, I'm just saying, wherever you are in the audio track, there were certain decisions made as I'm raising and lowering audio, dependent on the situation of the audio track. Yes,
okay, and those decisions were made by who?
that was made by me.
Oh, okay. In other words, not made by the investigators in the case or the prosecutors,
Nope.
they were made by you?
That's correct.
Okay. But the goal was to get as much of the sound from all 3 as possible.
Right, well, the goal of it was to synchronize all those audio files. That was the goal.
But you don't want to eliminate voices or sound. You want,
Sure.
if anything, you want to hear them.
That's correct.
Okay. So distance really does tell the story on what you can pick up at any given time from any one of the 3 microphones?
I would assume so, but I'm not an expert in that, so I couldn't
You
answer your
just
question.
know what you hear and act accordingly?
Well, if that's, yeah. With those isolated audio tracks, that's what I was focused on. I can't tell you how far somebody was away from a microphone.
And I'm not asking that. I'm just saying, basically, what you can tell from even from this project is that as you move away in distance, the sound gets quieter.
Yes, I would say that's true.
And can you also tell that if there's an obstruction blocking the sound, that has an effect?
Yes.
Thank you. I think I'm done. Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. Any redirect? No redirect. All right, Ms. Brown, you're excused. Watch your step, okay? And thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Go see the lawyers up here real quickly. Or somebody? 3-minute break. Don't talk about the case. Leave your pads upside down in your chairs. State, get your witness lined up. Yes, sir. And we'll just put you back, grab a drink, whatever you need to do. You got enough water? Do you need us to refill? I think Mona's been taking good care of you. And we'll have you right back out. Very quickly, guys. So I think everybody's gathered. I see your witnesses in the courtroom. And we'll let you officially announce it in a second. All right, everybody have a seat. And so jurors, in a second, the state is going to call their next witness. And I will just tell you now, in cases of this nature, you're going to have medical testimony. And it's going to be from the medical examiner. And so very often you'll be seeing charts and photographs of things that are uncomfortable. So I just want to tell you up front. Now, with that being said, if at any point during the process, somebody just raise your hand, say, you know, I need a chance to go breathe. And just raise your hand. I'm here for you, okay? But I can't read your mind. So just let me know. But I want to give you the warning so it just doesn't jump up on you. State, you ready to call your next witness?
State calls Dr. Juice.
Doctor, good afternoon and thank you for your patience. Come on up. Meet Deputy Dunkley right out here at the middle. And once you get there, if you'd raise your right hand and face Mr. Clerk for me.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And doctor, you're going to have a seat right up here. Watch your step. The chair does roll and swivel. So get yourself comfortable. Truly, the most important thing for me is that you speak directly into the center of the microphone so we can all hear. And so that whole base moves. And once you've done all that, if you would tell us your full name and slowly spell it for us.
My full name is Gertrude Just. First name Gertrude. Last name Juste.
And do me a favor, pull the microphone even a little bit closer.
Okay, that's better?
That's better. You can either lean forward or pull the microphone, whatever your choice. And state when you're ready.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, counsel.
Can you please tell us where you're currently employed?
Currently, I'm employed as a medical examiner for the County of Palm Beach.
Okay. And are you a licensed physician and surgeon?
I am a licensed physician.
Are you licensed in, other than the state of Florida, are you licensed in any other states?
Well, I have inactive licenses from New York, Washington, D.C., and Virginia.
Okay. How long have you been licensed to practice in your current profession?
I am not sure I can give you the exact date for my first license, but that was in New York in the 1980s. So it could have been 85, 89, or 87.
Okay.
I don't have the correct date. So
All right,
this
that's
license
fine.
is inactive. I haven't been in New York in years.
That's fine. Why don't you tell us, give us a little bit of background about where you started in the medical examiner's office.
You mean in Palm Beach?
Well, at the beginning of your career as a medical examiner.
Oh, I did a training as a medical examiner, as a forensic pathologist. To be a medical examiner, you have to be a pathologist. You have to be a physician and have done training in the field of pathology and then a subspecialty training in the field of forensic pathology. So after medical school, you choose a field of expertise or specialty.
Okay.
And
Now, how long were you in medical school?
medical school was 6 years. I'm a foreign graduate. I didn't graduate in this country.
Okay.
And when you are a foreign graduate, there is a body that that you can contact and essentially take an examination in the medical sciences. So this examination allows them to gauge, your knowledge in the basic sciences of medicine, and so there is a score that you have to achieve, and it's basically like passing the examination that's given to medical students here. When I took the exam, it was designed just for people who graduated from foreign countries. But over the years, they have just abandoned the exam to make it the same as the exam the medical students from medical school here take. So if you can pass it, then you become eligible to train in the United States.
Okay, and did you do that?
Yes.
Okay. So now you mentioned a few minutes ago that you had a specialty in pathology.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have do you have a subspecialty?
Yes, it's
And what
forensic
is it?
pathology.
Forensic pathology?
Yes.
And what exactly is forensic pathology?
Well, in relationship to pathology, forensic pathology is the application, basically, of pathology to the law. So you have to be a pathologist first before you get into the subspecialty training. The pathologist can train for 5 years in its field, or in her or his field. And the study of the pathology is the study of disease, essentially. A pathologist is a physician who deals mainly with studying of disease by examining tissues, blood, fluid, to see the changes and how they apply to the disease process and the changes that are occurring in your body.
Okay. So now your subspecialty in forensic pathology, did you decide that once you decided that you were going to focus on forensic pathology, did you decide at that point that you wanted to use that area of expertise as a medical examiner?
Well, essentially, forensic pathologists are medical examiners.
Right, that's what, so, I mean, but you could teach with it as well.
You can teach rarely, but you still teach while being a medical examiner.
Okay. And so now what I want to do is I want to go back a little bit now, and I want you to tell the members of the jury, where did you start after you received your education and training in forensic pathology, okay, as a medical examiner? Where did you start to practice in that area as a medical examiner?
Well, I did the training in Washington, D.C. My training in pathology was in New York. I did 5 years of training and then subsequently went to D.C. for an extra year in the field of forensic pathology. And from there, I was offered a position to stay on board. So I stayed there as a medical examiner for the next 8 years. So I was there 9 years.
Okay, and then that was in D.C., you said, right?
Yes.
And where did you go after you left D.C.?
I came to Florida. I went to Fort Lauderdale. I was there 3 years. And after the 3 years, I was offered a job by the current medical examiner to come to Palm Beach.
Okay. Now, and that's where you're currently employed, right?
Yes, I've been here 10 years,
Okay.
almost 11.
All right. In your current position as medical examiner, what exactly do you do?
I perform autopsies and I certify causes and manners of death.
Okay. Other than the degree that you received and the specialization in forensic pathology, did you become board certified in anything?
Yes, board certification is a different examination. It's a specialty type examination. Once you become a physician and you have passed the examination required to become a licensed physician, you can go and take a board examination at the completion of your training in your specialty. So after medical school, you have basically taken all 3 exams that they give for you to be licensed and practice medicine as a physician. However, if you want to be a plastic surgeon, then you have to take the boards in the specialty. You do surgery, and you do plastic surgery, and after that, you want to show that you're competent in your field of your chosen field of expertise or specialty. So you take the boards in that particular specialty. So every physician has to have a license, but not all physicians are board certified.
Okay. And are you board certified?
Yes, I am.
Now, you mentioned a minute ago that you, as a part of your job as the medical examiner, I guess the correct title for you would be associate medical examiner?
Yes.
Palm Beach County?
Correct.
Okay. And then you have a chief medical examiner there, right?
Yes.
In the time that you have been, I want to talk broadly now and ask you, in the time that you have been a medical examiner, okay, from the time you were in Washington, D.C. until now, how many autopsies would you say that you've performed?
Thousands.
Okay. And just since being here in Palm Beach County, where you indicated to us a few minutes ago, it's been about 10 years, how many autopsies would you say that you have performed?
Probably 3,000. In Washington, D.C., I was doing a little more, 280 to 300 a year.
Have you performed autopsies involving gunshot wounds to the heart?
I have done a lot of autopsies involving gunshot wounds.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you this, and if you don't know it, it's fine if you don't know, because I don't know if you took account before you came here to testify today or not. But can you tell the members of the jury how many autopsies you have performed that involved gunshot wounds to the heart? Are you able to give us an approximation?
I have not broken it down because You can have people who are shot multiple times also to the heart, and you can have people who are shot just to the heart. Most of my gunshot wound cases are multiple gunshot wounds.
Okay.
But we have a good percentage of cases where people are shot just through the heart.
Okay. So now what I want to do, Dr. Juice, is I want to, well, before I get to that, let me ask you this. As of today, do you still participate in ongoing training and education in your current field of forensic pathology?
Well, I work for a busy office. This doesn't leave you a lot of time to do any kind of outside work. But yes, the office itself is involved in training, our law enforcement students from various universities. And when they come, we are responsible for their training.
Okay. Thank you. I want to talk to you now about the death of Cory Jones. And do you recall whether or not you performed the autopsy on Cory Jones?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And do you recall what date that would have been when you performed that autopsy?
October 18, 2015.
Okay. I'm going to show you what is going to be states, I believe it's 86. Composite 86A through O. Judge, may I approach the witness, please?
You may.
Thank you. Just take a look at these. As you look at each one, if you don't recognize one, just tell me, but as you look at them, turn them over. Or hand them to me, please. Do you recognize the photographs?
I do.
Okay. And now these photographs, do they fairly and accurately depict photographs of the autopsy that you performed on Cory Jones back on October 18th of 2015?
They do.
Judge, at this time, state reference evidence states composite 86A through O.
May I just look at?
You may. Admitted.
Judge, permission to start to publish.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Juice, what I want to do is while I'm going through the photographs, I want to go through your autopsy report as well, okay? Because you prepared an autopsy report in this case, right?
Yes.
And can you just tell the members of the jury what an autopsy report is what?
Well, it's a document that is prepared at the end of the examination of a body, after the post-mortem examination of a body, to document the findings and write the opinion as to the cause and manner of death.
Now, before I get to that, once you performed the autopsy of Cory Jones in this case, do you have an opinion, or did you have an opinion at that time about the cause of death?
Yes.
And what was the cause of death?
The cause of death of Cory Jones is a gunshot wound of chest.
Okay. And did you have a manner of death?
Yes, it's a homicide.
Can you tell us, is there any way for you to tell us how long did it take you to perform the autopsy of Cory Jones when you did it?
Autopsies that involve gunshot wound and other type of injuries are usually lengthy autopsies because you have to be careful to do documentation. We start out by opening the bag where he's at, by photographing the body before we opening the body, taking more photographs as the body is presented to us from the scene.
Mm-hmm.
From there, the body is taken out. If there's any evidence from the bag, it has to be collected by crime scene investigators and documented, by photograph, etc. And then you have to then examine the body for injuries, and each injury has to be documented separately, measured as to position, size, and everything. Then the body has to be cleaned up, and any evidence taken on the body at that time is also going to be taken. So front and back, you have to examine everything from head to toes because you don't want to miss any kind of injury that would be hidden. And then the body has to be x-rayed. Once it's x-rayed, it's come back to the table, and that's when, and before and after the x-rays, I have to measure like I said, document every injury and write them down, the size, the characteristics and everything, and the positions on the body. And
so how long would you say it took you to
I would say for a typical single gunshot wound, probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. If a more complicated autopsy, like in his case, probably 3 hours.
Okay, so in Cory Jones's case, approximately 3 hours.
Approximately 3 hours.
Okay, so let's start going through the photos. And this photograph here, this is, what is this that we're looking at here, Dr. Juice?
It looks like a toe tag.
Okay, and so that's a tag that has his name, Cory Jones, on it, his age, 31, black male, and then there's a medical examiner's office case number there?
Yes.
Okay. And this photograph here?
That's an identification picture of Cory Jones.
Okay, so this is an identification picture, and that little thing that you have placed on his chest that says Palm Beach County Medical Examiner, is that the case number? Is that your medical examiner's office case number underneath?
Yes.
That writing there?
Yeah, that's a specific number assigned to that case.
Now, I want to start with the injuries. And what I'd like to address first is the injury to his right arm. So we can go to the injury to his right arm. That's under C. Yes. The photograph I have right now is C, Mr. Lugan. Okay, so now this here, Dr. Juice, is this his right arm that we're looking at here?
Yes.
Okay. And so now this defect that we see on his arm here, what is that?
This is a gunshot wound of entrance.
Okay. Now, would this be the entrance wound
Yes, it
to
is.
his arm?
Correct.
Okay. This is D. Now, this is that same right arm, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so what are we looking at here?
This is the exit gunshot wound. This was the through and through or perforating gunshot wound.
So when you call it through and through, that's the same thing as saying perforating,
Yes,
meaning that it went in and there's an exit.
correct.
Now we're gonna look at this E. This one here. Now, on this one, we're still looking at his right arm, right?
Yes.
And on his right, now, here you have a rod placed in his arm. What is the rod in his arm for?
It's just to show the direction of the bullet.
Okay. And can you tell us what was the direction of this bullet?
Well,
For instance, and let me rephrase it, because this, you see this little red dot here
yes,
on the screen that I have here?
yes.
Okay, so is that the front? Would that be the front right there?
The whole, are you talking about the rod or that?
The rod, yeah, would you classify that, characterize that as the front?
No, that's the back.
That's the back?
The hand is raised above, by his head.
Yes.
So you're not looking at the back of the head in the back of the body. It's raised, the way it's raised, it's going to look like it's facing forward.
Right, but what we don't see under here, where you have this rod,
Is the hole.
is that the entrance wound?
That's the entrance.
Okay, so now, can you give us the trajectory of that rod? Why, I'm assuming that's why you put that rod in there, so that you can determine trajectory, right?
Yes, it's a back to front and slightly down. You have to imagine the hand in the down position.
Okay.
We put it there to take a better picture, but if you imagine the hand being down, then it will be coming from the back of the arm going toward the front.
Okay, so the trajectory of that wound is back to front and slightly downward.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. With the gunshot wound like that, that's back to front, slightly downward, right arm, if a person has a gun in this position, is the trajectory on Cory Jones's arm consistent with him holding a gun like this?
No.
Or being shot like this?
No.
Okay. And why would that be inconsistent with him holding his arm like this and then being shot in it?
The trajectory would be different.
Okay. What would the trajectory be if he's standing like this with his right arm and he has a gun pointed at someone and someone shoots him in the right arm? What kind of trajectory would we expect to see?
Obviously, the bullet would have to come from the area that's closer to the shooter, going toward the body of the victim.
Okay.
So it would be an upward trajectory, and it doesn't fit what we have.
Okay. So hypothetically speaking, since this wound we know is back to front and slightly downward, would that wound be consistent with an arm movement of this nature?
Yes.
If someone is running and they're shot in that right arm, is that trajectory consistent with my right arm like this?
Yes, it's consistent.
Okay. And is it consistent because it gives you that back to front and slightly downward?
Sustain, rephrase.
Why is it consistent?
Because of the arm can be in different positions, but if it's in a position for the bullet to enter from the back and then exit that on this in area anterior where the weight is in the arm, then makes sense.
show you now what is on DF. Now, let's look at his left arm. This is a picture of his left arm. Now, this injury that we see right here, is that an exit wound or an entrance wound?
It's an entrance wound.
It's an entrance wound.
Yes.
And tell us about his arm here. What injuries did you note? I mean, his arm is just mangled. I mean, where is his elbow on here?
The elbow essentially is distorted. So you have the elbow in that area. I thought you'd be able to see it's to the left, correct, in that area.
Okay.
But there is broken bone that's pushing the tissues in an abnormal way, so you cannot see the regular shape of the elbow. You can see a piece of bone going through the skin. It's because the bone is broken.
Okay. All right. So when this bullet entered here, what did it do to his elbow? What path did it take, Dr. Joost?
Oh, it went from that medial aspect or inner aspect of the arm and exited to the outer aspect of the arm or lateral. And
Okay.
so, and in the process also, it hit the bone and broke the bone.
So in this left arm, it hit the bone, it destroyed the bone, it broke the bone. We see a piece of bone protruding out here. And what else did it do inside of here?
There are two bones in the arms, actually. One of the bones is broken, the other one is pulled out of the socket, essentially not the socket, but the area where it articulates in the elbow. You have two bones in the forearms, and they articulate with your upper arm bone. So one is broken, the other one is just out of position.
Did it tear through muscle, the bullet, when it entered into
That's what bullets usually do. They release energy that shred or destroy tissues.
All right. Now this gunshot wound here, did it have an exit wound as well?
Yes.
Show you what is G. Okay. So now, we're looking at his left arm, and we're looking at the rod that you have there also. And so what was the trajectory on his left arm? What was the trajectory of the bullet on his left arm?
As I said, it's from medial aspect to lateral aspect and posterior aspect of the arm. The way the arm is twisted here, I have other pictures, I don't know if you can see it, but it started on the medial aspect, which is closer to the body here, going outward, and then it's going down in the arm. The way the word is now, it looks like it's going from down upward because it's his entrance. I'm sorry.
You can come, Judge, may she step down?
She may, just watch your step.
Thank you, Dr. Juice.
Do you need a pointer or you want to use the laser?
You can use a laser if you want. It's this one right here. That right there. Okay.
So the entrance is
Stand up
here.
here so you don't block the chair.
The entrance is here and the exit is here. And the characteristic of an entrance would
Just
be-
pause for a second. Could we bring the microphone? Yeah, perfect. Yes, ma'am.
The characteristic of an entrance wound is different from the characteristic of an exit wound, so it's not a question where the bullet started and where it came out. It started here and came out here.
Okay. Now, would you, is that coming from that entrance there? Is that coming into the back of his arm? That left arm?
It's coming from the inside of the left arm here, going out this way toward the lateral and pretty much looking in the back.
Okay. And is it going upward or downward?
Downward.
Okay. So now, is that consistent, that injury there, based on what you just told us, how it's located, is that consistent with me standing here, my left arm pointed like this? Would that type of wound be consistent if I'm shot in my left arm? Would that be consistent with my arm being held straight out like this?
With the arm straight like this, where the exit wound is, that's where the bullet would have been entering and exiting the other way, because the exit is lower in the arm and the entrance is higher in the arm. So it is not consistent with somebody who received a gunshot wound as he is pointing the hand toward someone who has a gun.
Okay. Would it be consistent with my left arm being in this motion?
Yes.
Would it be consistent with that?
It would be consistent because the left arm would have to be away from the body, and the bullet would then enter the lateral part.
Like back here?
Yes, and coming out. It would be entering the aspect of the arm that is here.
Like right here?
And coming out that way down.
Coming out the forearm?
Downward, yeah.
Okay. And at a downward trajectory?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Juice. Now, I want to show you, before we get to that, to his chest wound. I want to show you what is 86K, as in Kit Kat. This photograph right here, Dr. Juice. Now, this obviously is a photograph of an X-ray, right?
Yes.
And is that of his left arm?
Yes.
And so can you tell the members of the jury what they're looking at here with the X-ray?
They are looking at the bone. Higher up, there is a bone, and in the center, that's the articulation where the three bones meet. So you have two bones in your forearm. There is one of those bones that allows you to do this with your arm, essentially twist your arm when you have to use it in a certain way. Of these two bones, one of them was hit by the bullet, and you can see clearly where it was hit.
Okay. And those look like we see little fragments in there?
Those are fragments of the bullet.
Okay. Now, the injury to Cory Jones's left arm, if he, at the time that he was shot in his left arm, if he would have been holding anything in his left hand, after sustaining that type of gunshot wound to his arm, would he have been able to continue to hold on to whatever it was he was holding on to?
No.
Okay, and why not?
Because a gunshot wound is essentially a blast injury. As it passes through the arm, it release energy in your tissues that essentially blow away the tissues and cut them, lacerate them. And that's one reason why it would have been impossible for him. The second thing is that the tissues being cut off. Those are the muscles that you need to actually hold the gun. And the bone also is broken. That's another element that would prevent you from holding something with your hand.
Okay. Now, with these two shots, Dr. Juiced, which you have both, you told us that they are shots from the back. Are you able to tell us the sequence of those two injuries to his left arm and right arm? For instance, and what I mean by that is, can you tell the members of the jury which one did he sustain first, the left arm or the right arm?
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about the gunshot wound to his chest. I'm going to show you what is H, 86H. Okay. So now, what are we looking at here, Dr. Juiced?
This is an entrance gunshot wound.
And what are we looking at on eye?
It's a close-up of the same wound.
Now, with this gunshot wound to the chest, are you able to tell us whether or not that gunshot wound came from someone who was firing and standing straight in front of him, or did he, is it more consistent with it coming in at an angle to his body?
Sustain, just rephrase.
Are you able to tell us the direction of how he would, what the direction that his body would have been in when he sustained that gunshot wound?
We look at the gunshot wounds and their characteristics, and as you can see, I've put rods to the gunshot wounds to show the overall trajectory and direction of the bullet takes. However, when we look at an entrance gunshot wound specifically, we look at how, at the angle that the bullet essentially hit the body. Sorry. May I?
Yes. Judge Mason?
Of course.
This gunshot wound, it's a typical gunshot wound. It's a typical. Because you can see.
Right here.
Okay. You can see how sharp the margins are. However, the center hole where that the bullet makes entering, and by the way, the skin that was covering that hole is going to be under the bullet. So the bullet is pushing it in. That's why you see a hole, you don't see skin anymore. And bullet enters through here. However, if you look carefully, you're going to see at that area here, not this area, you see a fleshy pink area, like a crescent shape type area.
You said crescent shape?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
crescent shape area that we call a marginal abrasion. When you look at characteristic of entrance wound, you see a marginal abrasion. It's usually made by the bullet as it enters. If it enters at an angle different than, let's say, a 90-degree angle. A bullet that enters straight would have had the margins almost completely smooth like this. You might see a tiny abrasion, but it will be all around. because it enters it at a straight angle. However, once the angle starts diminishing, getting lower, the bullet will create a scraping on the tissues that we call a marginal abrasion to the side where it enters. So we can already tell that the bullet is coming from that area, going down even without looking at the track inside. We can tell that this bullet is coming from here going in.
Okay. So it's like it's coming from a side angle.
Yes,
that
the
accurate?
other picture actually will,
Okay.
with the body, will show.
That one?
Yes. So you're looking at the body here. So this is the front of the body, and this bullet is coming this way
Okay.
at an angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Gerald. So now let me ask you this. Since you've now told us that based on the marginal abrasion that we see there and that crescent-shaped skin inside that wound, we now know that it's coming at that angle that you just showed us. So
Yes.
if I'm running, Judge, I wanna ask a question.
Over. I couldn't even get it out. Overruled. Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
It's no problem at all.
So if I'm running, and if I turn, because this, let me ask you this first. This is the right side of his body, is that right?
Right.
The right side of my body, right here. If I am running, and if I turn like this to look back, and someone shoots me right here at the same location, would you expect to see that same type of marginal abrasion and that crescent-shaped skin that you see inside because of the direction of the angle that I'm being shot and the way my body is turned? More so, the way my body is turned.
Yes, the bullet enters at an angle, obviously. So that means the bullet is coming from the right side of the body, but it's not coming exactly straight toward the body. So the body has, if you are running, as you said, this hypothesis, you gave me that hypothesis, and that person is running, the person who's holding the gun will be holding it at the muzzle of the gun will be held at an angle to the body. But if the person is straight and the person who's on the side is exactly at the same level of that victim, the bullet will make an entry that is straight into the body. But if the body is turned, then that same angle can be achieved. If the person is running and the person who's shooting at him is not at the same level and that person turns around, then again, it will be made that way. It will have an angle.
Okay, so you would expect to see that type of injury when a person turns like that?
Correct.
Okay, now I want to show you what is going to be, what was actually J. Dr. Juice, if it's okay with the judge, if you need to step down to explain what we're looking at here, I'd like you to do that, okay? But before we get to talking about that photograph, let me ask you this. what was the trajectory once it did enter into Cory Jones's body?
Well, it went inside of the chest, and it went through Cory's right lung. Then it went through the heart, as you can see it here, the top portion of the heart, and the left lung is now taken, and the bullet ended up in the lateral aspect of his left arm.
Let me just go ahead and show you what's Ellen real quick. The bullet ended up here,
Correct.
that, what we see right there on the top.
That's correct.
Okay. And did you take that bullet out?
I did.
So I want to talk about the injuries to his heart, okay? And can you just tell the members of the jury what, when we're looking at this, what about this heart is blown apart?
I didn't get the last part.
When we're looking at this photograph of the heart, what about Cory Jones's heart in this photograph has been blown apart? What areas?
Like I said, the top portion of his heart is blown away. He has a hole that started, the bullet hit the right side of the heart, the top, which is the atrium. The atrium, there are two chambers in the heart, two on top and two at the bottom. And the two on top are where the muscle is very thin and it's not very thick. The bottom is where most of the mass, the muscle mass of the heart is. The chambers that are on the right and the left, the ventricles. What we call the atria, right atrium, left atrium, they are filling chambers that go into the ventricles. And then the ventricles now with the strong power muscle can eject the blood out. So you can see that the top portion is taken out.
When you say top portion,
Yeah.
are you referring? Oh, come on down, Dr. Juice. You were coming down? Yes. Have you say it for me?
He has this area of the heart is taken first. That's the right atrium.
Doc, will you do me a favor? Just that one. Yep, perfect.
The right atrium is taken here, and then the bullet passed through the aorta. The aorta is a big tube that comes out of the left side of the heart.
So can I stop you right there? This part right here, like this white flesh that we see, is this supposed to be all the way down here?
No, no. It looks like it's coming from the right side. However, this aorta comes from this side of the heart under this blood vessel that you're looking at here. This one is blown away too. This one comes directly from the right side. You can follow it from here, going this way. Okay. But this one came from under it, from the left side, passing under this one, and coming this way and making a curve downward into your body.
Okay.
So this is the aorta. It came from the left side. And this is the pulmonary artery, and it comes from the right side of the heart.
Okay. And so now, when we use you use the term blown apart, when we're looking at this flap that we see over here, what's that?
This flap belongs to the pulmonary artery. It's another tube. You know, it starts right here. It has a valve right where it starts inside. And that valve allows the blood to, when the blood comes from the right atrium here, it fills this cavity here. And there is a valve that opens and closes as the blood come in or come out. As the ventricle closes, it finishes closing, that valve from the top kind of goes back in, allowing the blood muscle here to be popped into this tube here that we call the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery brings blood that is non-oxygenated, that needs to go to your lungs so you can fill it with oxygen. And so as it comes here, it branches out, it gives two branches. You can see that here because I have cut the pulmonary artery and cut the aorta right after they emerge because I needed to remove the heart. So I had to remove the heart with this portion because they are injured, so I could take photographs of them. So I cut right above the injury on both of them.
So where did you cut?
I cut right here.
You would have cut right up here, right?
Correct.
Did you cut it?
No, this is injury. You can see how lacerated it is. Irregular, it's hemorrhagic. The whitish part here is the inside of the tube. This outside, and this is inside. So basically, if you continue under there is still a little part of the tube here, but it's totally gone.
So that tube has just been blown away?
Destroyed, yeah. And this second here, that flap comes from the area where it's also blown. So it kind of reverse here. That's the inside of it that you're looking at.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about, before I get to that. That bullet that we saw a few minutes ago, that was an X-ray. I'm showing you what is now M. Is that it right there?
Yes, it is.
And is this another angle of that same bullet?
Yes, it mushroom. That's what we call it, mushrooming.
And is this the bottom of that same bullet?
Yes.
So
Yeah, it looks a little taller.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm looking at in a different angle. So
Okay.
looks like two different things.
So now, once you see that his heart has been virtually blown apart, are you able to take your findings and tell us what a person who sustains an injury like that, physiologically, what are they going to, how far would they be able to travel? I mean, are they gonna, let me ask you this way. Are they going to, is a person who sustains a gunshot wound to the heart like this, is that person going to just drop like a sack of potatoes immediately?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
No.
And why not?
I have to answer slowly because gunshot wounds to the heart are different. You don't have all gunshot wounds to the heart being the same. But in this particular instance, you have somebody who's output from the main pump of his body has been cut off.
You said the output from the main
pump, which is the heart, it's totally cut off. The minute he sustained that injury, blood will not be able to continue to the tubes, either to the big aorta or the pulmonary artery. Every time the heart pumps, the blood is coming out. It's not going to be pumped into the tubes because the tubes are destroyed. So at this particular time, what I expect to happen is that there is going to be a sudden drop in blood pressure into the body. And you have to,
You said a sudden drop, so what happens when that sudden drop happens?
when you have a sudden drop of blood pressure, you start fainting immediately. You faint, you become dizzy. When you have a sudden drop in blood pressure, you become dizzy, you experience fainting, and you eventually pass out.
So if a person, Cory Jones, with this injury to his heart, is he going to be able to travel, run 123 feet after sustaining a gunshot wound to his heart that's basically been blown apart?
No.
And 123 feet, is that the same as approximately 41 yards?
Yes.
How far, and to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, how far do you, in your expert opinion, do you believe Cory Jones would have been able to travel after his heart has been blown out that way?
I'd say a few feet. If he's already in motion, he would definitely, the motion will continue for a few feet. For a few yards, or a couple yards, I meant.
Okay. Few feet, couple of yards?
Couple yards.
Okay. Now, Dr. Joost, we saw the picture of his actual heart that you pulled out of his chest, and you photographed it, you examined it, you did everything with it, right? You were the person that held his heart.
Correct.
And looked at it, examined it. At some point, did we make a 3D version of what his injuries